Racist stereotypes of Mexican Americans are a permanent stain on American cinema. From the greasers of the silent era, then thugs, which grew into gangs that all originated from Mexico the Hell, to now, narcos. For 80 years, American cinema all but erased Mexican Americans from U.S. society.
In Sleepy Lagoon.
The cops ain't got nothing on me, and you know it.
You're Henry Reina, carnal. Hank Reina. The Zoot Suiter.
Zoot Suit is about the real-life events of the Sleepy Lagoon murder trial. The play recounts and humanizes one of the darkest times in Los Angeles history.
Come on! It's an affront to good taste.
Like the Mexican, the Filipino, and the black who wear it.
It looks just as ridiculous on the white kids.
You mean the wops and the Jews?
Hey, look, sport, be honest. You guys weren't even wearing clothes when the white man pulled you out of the jungle. If a uniform is what you want, join the goddamn army.
Why?
The play ran for 5 years in front of 40,000 Angelinos and was the first Mexican-American play on Broadway.
You know what your problem is, Hank? You can't stand yourself, and you can't stand me telling you.
Shut up, ese.
San Guilmas was made for self-victimizing suckers like you, Hank. Underneath that big, tough bullshit exterior you put on's a little snot-nosed Mexican kid.
Shut up.
Begging for the gringos' attention.
Shut up.
You turned yourself into a target, ese. A willing victim of the pinche races, and they threw your ass in prison for life.
Shut up!
In 1981, the play was turned into a film, launching the career of Edward James Olmos.
To put on the Zoot Suit and play the myth. Más chucote que la chingada. Pues órale.
As World War II caused a labor shortage, the Bacaro Program was created to temporarily fill the labor gap with Mexican workers, continuing an ongoing dysfunctional relationship vital to American economics for the last 150 years. When labor exploitation is needed, Mexicans are welcomed. But when they are no longer useful, a brutal sense of dehumanization is employed. By 1942, thin-skinned Anglo-Americans found themselves fearful, intimidated, and fueled by excessive racism.
And all he knows and feels is a desire to use a knife to kill, or to at least let blood. This inborn characteristic comes down from the bloodthirsty Aztecs.
Objection, Your Honor!
Media tycoons, such as William Randolph Hearst, and media monopolies, such as the Los Angeles Times, provided gasoline to a growing fire of racism toward Mexican Americans. A tactic still in use today, such as billionaire Rupert Murdoch's border hoax to rile up supporters of Donald Trump.
Forget the war overseas, carnal. Your war's on the home front.
Racial tensions reached a climax on August 1st, 1942, when the body of Jose Diaz was discovered. The media, led by the Los Angeles Times, worked with the police and government officials to target the 31st Street Gang, a predominantly Mexican-American gang known for the growing stereotype moniker, Pachucos.
Leave reality behind. Con tus buenas garras, voy Chamberlain. Escape through the barrio streets of your mind. Through a neighborhood of memory, all charcoal lined.
The Pachuco was easily targeted for the style of dress, which included baggy clothing like famous jazz singers such as Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway.
Chicano está, chicano. Le llevan la... Ay, viejo. Hijo, don't go out like that, eh? Por favor. You look like an idiot, pendejo.
Since rationing wool was federal law, a black market for oversized counterculture style emerged. This style was called the Zoot Suit. A group of sailors on leave claimed to have been taunted by kids, so they...
A fleet of 20 taxicabs carrying some 200 servicemen pulled out of the naval armory at Chavez Ravine tonight and assembled a task force that invaded the East Side barrios. The Zoot Suiters.
The sailors disgraced the young men by taking their clothes off, dragging them to the middle of the street, and beating them. When the police arrived, only the Mexican Americans were arrested, instead of the attackers.
You don't deserve it, but you're gonna get it anyway.
The PD would curb the legal outrage by later claiming the arrests were made in the youth's protection. The sheriff and LAPD, long used as terrorist organizations rather than peacekeeping institutions, rounded up hundreds of kids based on racial bias alone.
We're using other terms.
Like Pachuco and Zoot Suiter.
What's wrong with that? The Zoot Suit crime wave is even beginning to push the war news off the front page.
22 of these kids stood trial for the Sleepy Lagoon murder of Jose Diaz. Rioting erupted throughout the city as the kangaroo trial for the Sleepy Lagoon murder took place.
What they say, carnal. Latin lover's nothing but a fucking Mexican.
Órale.
All of the kids were found guilty on some of the flimsiest evidence in one of the most racially biased cases in American history.
Murder in the first and second degrees.
Ay, hijo. Hijo de mi vida.
Defendants will rise.
So many years in jail was more than enough time to mentally damage the innocent.
Henry Ray went back to prison in 1947 for robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. While incarcerated, he killed another inmate and wasn't released until 1955 when he got into hard drugs. He died of the trauma of his life in 1972.
Zoot Suit is one of the only modern historical fictions centering on the racism toward Mexican-American communities to be found in all of cinema.
Control yourself, Hank. Don't hate your raza more than you love the gringo.
The father of Mexican-American cinema brought awareness, grace, as well as a voice to the working people living in the shadow of poverty in the United States.
I know who you are, carnal. You're the one that got me here. And you know what? You're me. My worst enemy.
Louis Valdez was born to immigrants from Mexico. The young Valdez grew up with Zoot Suiter Cesar Chavez, and later joined the Freedom March movement led by Chavez in the 1960s.
Prejudicial error, denial of due process, inadmissible evidence.
¿Sabes qué, George? Don't give me any more of your shit.
Shot in just 2 weeks on a ridiculously low independent feature film budget.
Quite frankly, Mr. Scherer, I'm getting rather tired of your repeated, useless objections.
I have not made useless objections.
Oh, I'm sorry. Someone is using ventriloquism. We have a Charlie McCarthy using Mr. Scherer's voice.
I'm going to assign that remark of Your Honor as misconduct.
Fine.
Governor Earl Warren, eager to put the entire episode behind the city of Los Angeles, set up a commission in hopes of shedding a positive light on improvements. The Citizens Committee report is an astonishingly insightful admission of rampant, institutionalized racism, which spanned from the Los Angeles Times and other media outlets to government leaders to police and even the military.
And that's a perfect way to end this play. Happy ending, y todo. But life ain't that way, Hank.
Although a new trend is emerging in streaming and television to represent positive Latinx characters, cinema still reserves Mexican Americans as villains.